All right. I am now joined by Touré Reed and Jason Myles. How you doing, guys?
Hey,
Evening.
So Jason actually has a Halloween shirt on, which is yeah. There we go. There we go. Good stuff. Um, I have got to. I actually do have a They Live shirt somewhere. It's like a stupid joke about the Carpenters. It says like John Carpenters, and then it's got the Carpenters looking like the aliens as you see them when you've got the glasses on. Um, but I'm excited about this. Just rewatched the movie for first time in a long time. And yeah, I mean this is probably like I like Halloween, Love They Live, but this is probably my favorite Carpenter movie.
His only big budget Hollywood film.
and it's his best film, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like They Live a lot because it was The Matrix before it was The Matrix. I have this weird attachment to the Ghosts of Mars, partly because Ice Cube is playing that character he always plays, Surly Brother from Compton.
But is there any Anthrax reason why you like Ghosts of Mars? Because they did the score?
Oh, yeah, I love the score. And I love the way the aliens talk, if that's the right word, but scream, yell, whatever it is they do. But in terms of the aesthetics and the effectiveness, The Thing is it's the only John Carpenter film I can think of that isn't campy, because I think they're all kind of campy.
Even Halloween?
Yeah. I mean, when I saw the Rob Zombie reimagining of Halloween, I really appreciated the original Halloween.
Yeah.
I really just like that.
I remember watching that in the theater, and God, like part of what makes the original so good is that it's this total black box thing, like what it is that made Michael Myers do this. He was just like a normal, happy, kid, and then he goes nuts and starts killing anybody. One of the most iconic lines in the movie is Dr. Loomis talking about how like he tried to figure out what his deal was for however many years, and he just saw nothing staring back at him.
Yeah.
And then of course the Rob Zombie like reimagining of it. It's like, yeah, it's probably his parents were fucked up rednecks, and like that's what made him like that.
Too much backstory of those remakes too. Remember that they give you the part of Nightmare on Elm Street remake actually gets into him being a child molester, which was something that Wes Craven kept out because the McMartin trial was going on when he made the first one, and he wanted to stay away from that. So I agree. I don't like too much backstory in the movie.
But worse than that, I mean, I think Rob Zombie didn't really understand what Halloween was about, because thinking about John Carpenter's politics, what little I know of him, Halloween was a commentary on alienation and suburbanization. I mean, it or in suburbia. It matters that Mike Myers came from a middle class background, I think, in the original Michael Myers, not Mike Myers, in the original Halloween, because he's commenting on how awful suburbia is on some level and what it does to people, just as a matter of the reality of living in these compartmentalized, segmented worlds, right? So when Rob Zombie explores Michael Myers as coming from a broken home and stripper mom, was his mom? His mom was a stripper before credit was free, credit was easy and available, and I'm certain that easy access to credit had a lot to do with the expansion of the sex industry. I mean, it's just a guess. But anyway, so when Rob Zombie takes it in that direction, it completely obliterates the genius of Halloween, if that's the right word. And I think Halloween is really quite insightful in some ways and charming in its simplicity. But it's The Thing, and I think The Thing has a nice Cold War commentary in the Reagan years. You don't know who your enemies are.
I was going to ask you guys that if you felt that the monster is if this is the perfect Cold War allegory, is the monster and The Thing. And
yeah, so I think there is some stuff that lends itself to that. I was just going to say before we left the subject of remakes that unlike the Halloween remake, which we talked about, or even the Nightmare on Elm Street, remake that was mentioned, where all of the high school kids looked like they were in their 30s. Like they made the subtext about, it's like, oh, he went after children. What does that mean? And they just made it like text, and it got like way less interesting. But unlike those, like I will say that I guess it wasn't really a remake; it was really a prequel. But the movie from like 10 years ago that was called The Thing was like, it was The Thing. It wasn't that, but it also wasn't like a movie abortion like those other two. It was like, it was fine. It was like an okay X-Files episode.
The worst thing about the remake, I mean,
whatever it was. Yeah.
Okay. And I had high hopes for it because I think the guy who directed is the same dude who directed Dawn of the Dead, the remake, which is one of my favorite zombie films, if that matters, but it doesn't have to. But I hated the CGI effects. I mean, they had gone into the film, in the spirit of the original, relying heavily on practical effects. And after the film, I believe, was done, the producers decided they didn't like the look of the practical effects and just redid it CGI. And the CGI actually made it kind of feel like a screensaver. There is a visceral quality to the practical effects, and the fact that one has to be very careful with how one shoots the practical effects really forces the cinematographers and directors to really think about the film, right? To think about the monster and the scenes, right? And I think with the CGI, they can do whatever they want, and that ends up really undercutting the artistry of the film very much. And I imagine that the actors have a more difficult time too. But I hated the CGI.
Did I hear you say that you really liked the Dawn of the Dead remake?
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the few zombie films that I liked that had no major social commentary, and I think one of the hits that it took in comparison to the original was that the original was a commentary on consumerism, and and that commentary wasn't in the remake. But the remake had Richard Cheese and The Lounge Against the Machine, so I mean, right then and there, that puts it over the top. And the original, I hate the cinematography and the acting in the original too. The cinematography in particular.
Yeah. I mean, social commentary in the original certainly wasn't subtle. There was I liked when they're on the roof of the mall, they're looking at the zombies milling around outside, and they say, "Oh, this was a very important place to them in their old lives." Yeah.
And the seriousness in which he says it.
Exactly.
Have you seen the George Clinton thing where he talks about he was high out of his mind and drove by when they were making that movie?
But wasn't George Clinton high out of his mind whenever he was driving by things back then?
That is kind of any George Clinton. I was high out of my mind this one time in North Carolina. Yeah.
That's what I learned from Tales from the Tour Bus.
That's what he tells it on the Tales from the Tour Bus. He says that he was high out of his mind with Bootsy, and they drove by the set one night in North Carolina. Had no idea that they were filming this movie, and so saw all those people dressed up like zombies, and they fucking lost their shit.
And Bootsy was always high out of his mind too.
He was also high out of his mind
on psychedelics too, right?
Well. Speaking of high out of our minds. This is an era where cocaine is greenlighting a lot of movies, right? That being said, did you like that? That being said, the movies that this is up against is Poltergeist, which comes out in the same studio, which actually affects the poster. And Carpenter, I guess, didn't like the poster because his whole thing was he wanted to do a monster movie where the monster wasn't a man in a suit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I think we all agree the practical effects, the wet puppets in this movie are gorgeous to watch. The cinematography, as Touré is talking about, is so important because this is done in this. And I didn't know this. I thought they actually filmed on location somewhere cold. I think they did some shots in Alaska, in British Columbia, but a lot of this was in the studio.
Yeah.
So lighting is very, very important. So the cinematographer did a terrific job, because I still think this monster. I just watched it earlier today, and I jumped out of my seat 3 times. Like, the monsters, I think, still work very well in this movie, and I miss wet puppets and practical effects.
Oh yeah, I mean that's so much like right. I mean, pretty much anything that you're doing with actual physical reality almost always looks better than CGI. But I want to so I want to get into this just to kind of obviously broaden it out. Talk about the Cold War stuff you're bringing up, but just to kind of anchor it, right? I mean, let's just go through the plot a little bit. So we start out with a sled dog running.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful dog. Absolutely.
I had a Muskie Malamute as well. So oh man, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, which is actually probably part of the deal, because as you're watching this dog running through the snow with the helicopter chasing it and trying to shoot at it, that's like just viscerally, you don't want this dog to get shot. So it's a Norwegian helicopter that's chasing it, and there are a bunch of Americans at the research station. There's a nice scene where one of them is playing chess on this incredibly primitive computer.
Chess wizard.
Chess wizard.
The only woman in the movie is the chess wizard.
That's true.
Yes,
Adrienne Barbeau, the great Adrienne Barbeau.
And then he pours whiskey to destroy the computer, and so says cheating bitch. So there you go. The gender politics of this movie might be something to be desired, but so the Norwegian pilot who's tried to has landed at this point accidentally blows up his own helicopter. Tries to shoot the dog some more, shoots one of the Americans by mistake, and eventually he is shot to death by Station Commander Gary. Then we have 2 of the Americans, McCready and Dr. Copper, leave to investigate the Norwegian base. Around the base, there are charred ruins and frozen corpses, and they find the bird remains of something that is very hard to explain, because it's seems to be a human corpse, but it's got the
faces. Yeah,
it's got 2 faces. They do an autopsy and find a normal set of human organs. So let's see. Clark kennels puts the sled dog in the kennel, which is actually just a nicely done scene. There aren't any. Clark is there briefly, right? But there aren't really any human actors in the scene. All of the drama is going on with the dogs, but you sort of see the one dog walking in and very slowly, and the others reacting to it, and it's some nicely done dog drama there. But this is where you realize that what's going on, because the dog is an alien. He just blows up. What explodes out of him is just this unspeakable Lovecraftian monstrosity, with tentacles, waving around in the air. And they realize that roughly what is up. So they figure out that the Norwegians unearthed the alien spacecraft that you saw for a second at the very, very beginning of the movie. Actually, I thought it was kind of funny that the spaceship that you see at the very beginning, it almost looks Star Trek-y.
A total flying saucer.
Yeah. So, and then they have. so they start to figure out what's going on here, and this is actually the first scene where the idea of this Cold War commentary starts to make sense, because there's this scene where they're kind of hanging out in the rec room, and there's they're all like talking about whether these are aliens, and does that even make sense? I think Childs, if I'm remembering right, doesn't want to acknowledge that it's possible, that it could be aliens. But then there is the one dude who is getting high and talking about chariots of the gods.
Backup helicopter pilot, I believe.
Yeah, and he says, and there is a line that kind of stuck in my head. I thought of, when you started talking about the Cold War stuff, where he says, "Oh yeah, the aliens, they control like half of South America."
Chariots of the gods.
Mm-hmm. That's all those Egyptian artifacts are actually alien. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, maybe it's a stretch, but you could do something there. There's the paranoia about the Russians in Latin America. But in any case, let's see. They figure out at this point, Blair goes nuts. He's, you see him like figuring out.
You also should say who Blair is played by. That's very important.
Wilford Brimley.
Yes.
Diabetes.
Yeah. So Wilford Brimley has been doing all this research, and maybe if you wanted to be nitpicky, it's a little unclear how he's putting all this together quite as quickly as he is. But you see his conclusions. You see this like Atari or whatever he's using, where he's somehow modeled out that if this is released into the general population within 27
I think he poured rice in the chess master to dry it out.
What's that?
I think he poured rice on the chess master to dry it out, and that's how
That's what he's using to figure out.
Guys, evil.
All the stuff about the aliens, yeah. So he gets incredible.
Turn the TV to 3. We got to turn the computer on. No, that's 2. We got to turn it to 3.
I did have an Atari 400. So
yeah, no. As I was watching that, I did have the thought. I don't really remember exactly, but I definitely remember having a computer where the screen looked like the screen of the computer there. I don't really believe that computer could have done everything this computer is doing, but who knows? And so Blair gets incredibly paranoid because says, "All right, if this thing gets out, somehow or another, his Atari has calculated 27,000 hours later, the entire human race, will have been subsumed by the alien." And so he kills all the remaining sled dogs. He destroys the radio. And eventually the rest of the team catches up to him. They imprison him in a tool shed. And it's going to be very important because for a lot of the rest of the movie, he's off doing his own thing in the tool shed.
To be clear, not because they thought he was crazy. Well, not because he was wrong. They thought he was right, but they also thought he was crazy because he was crazy.
Right.
Fine for a hot minute.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, though, they have figured out at this point that the alien can replicate the cells of anything, and it will start to look like that thing, it will act like that thing, and talk like it, which of course means that any of them could be it, which is maybe the other place where the Cold War stuff comes comes in, little shade of McCarthyism here, maybe that
So in doing some reading about this, and then also the time, this again comes out in '82. Part of the subtext that Carpenter wanted to write into the script, because the original script, which was written, treatment of it was written by Tobe Hooper, one of my favorite directors. I love the original Poltergeist. I love the original Chainsaw. I even really enjoy what he did with this sequel. Made it a comedy. And so when the rewrite comes down, they want to put AIDS as a little bit of the subtext.
Okay.
So AIDS is this disease that's ripping through communities of people where you don't know who's infected. So as much as I was watching it and reading Cold War all the way through, it's even part of my notes. I've watched a good amount of some interesting commentary videos of it. People also added Cold War analogies in it as well, because we're also talking about 1982.
Right.
But in actually also watching some interviews with Carpenter, AIDS.
Ben, before you go on, I don't know, had either of you watched Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn when that was on? It was a terrible.
Yes.
So do you remember, Jason, the episode that featured Dennis Leary and Greg Giraldo? And it's a classic episode where Dennis Leary comes at Greg Giraldo for actually having prepared for the show and writing. And then Greg Giraldo shanked Dennis Leary as only Greg Giraldo could, because Greg Giraldo was awesome. Well, Jason, I feel now like Dennis Leary to your Greg Giraldo, because you went into the Thing archives.
The only reason why I did that is because I'm going on a show with two professors. If I don't do my homework when going on a show with two professors, I'm asking for trouble.
Okay.
So I just wanted to be prepared when on a show with not just two professors. And I'll say this to anyone's watching right now. These aren't just two professors. These are two very good friends of mine who I respect immensely, and I learn a lot from. I talk to Touré almost every day, and it's a bit of a lesson every time I talk to him. So I just wanted this motherfucker to know that I'm ready.
Well, you outclassed me. So.
Well, the AIDS thing that neither of us knew does make sense for the next part, because once they figured out that it could be anybody or more than one of them, the thing that Copper figures out that they could do as a test is a blood thing. That what he which again, definitely some echoes of that paranoia about the AIDS crisis. And so he thinks that they can take, they've got some like blood stored somewhere in the bay. To be honest, I wasn't quite clear why they had this blood there. I don't know if either of you were clear on that. Is this like every Arctic research base keeps blood around?
Yeah.
They never say what they're there for. I guess that's supposed to be part of the mystery, because you don't know what they're researching in Antarctica.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And why they had guns, because apparently
flamethrowers. They had
actually, some very so is every Arctic research station heavily armed, complete with flamethrowers, and they just have this supply of blood that's like locked away in a closet for some reason?
Well, and the prequel would have us believe that, because in the prequel, the Norwegians have flamethrowers too.
But again, you have to ask yourself why, if everything that you do in Antarctica is supposed to be these peaceful scientific explorations, you're not supposed to be out there fucking planting a flag and starting a war, allegedly.
Yeah, which is like a throwaway joke early in the movie, after the Norwegian guy, who, as far as they knew at that point, just had cabin fever and was going to be poison. The guy says, "Oh, maybe we're at war with Norway."
And no one cared. It was like an international incident, and no one really gave a shit. They just shot that guy in the head, and they're like, "Oh, guess we got to pick this guy up."
But don't you think cabin fever might be why they had the collection of blood? I mean, they're bored, right? McReady just killed the chess master. Wilford Brimley's got the diabetes and is cranky even when he doesn't, right? So they're all locked away in a giant ice freezer. And in the end, what do they have left to do after McReady kills the chess master but to take each other's blood?
Fair enough.
We got mad that he did that. That was like the only video game on the Atari.
They also ran out of VHS tapes, right? Because they were watching like The Price is Right on VHS.
When VHS tapes, and I'm sure Ben has a young audience. VHS tapes.
Oh, yeah, I gotta explain what a VHS tape is.
The precursor to CDs.
They used to be $100 for a VHS. If you remember, way before Blockbuster, VHS cassettes were very, very expensive. So to have like 2 or 3 movies, you was a rich motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean,
or you were doing important stuff in Antarctica with going crazy and playing with each other's blood. A chess master and 4 VHS tapes of The Price is Right, and flamethrowers. You got
flamethrowers. And dynamite.
Dynamite.
Lots of dynamite.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the Norwegians were, excavating things out of the ice, so I can kind of buy the dynamite from that. I don't know what as we established, we don't know what the Americans were doing, and somebody says in the chat, "Oh, it's medical blood supply." I'm not quite sure how much that explains. Like, it's like, okay, everybody doing research of any kind. Okay, there's a doctor there, but like the idea that's like, oh, there's a doctor there, so therefore he's traveling around with the blood. I don't know about that. But,
a type for everybody. He's like that Good Times character that would open up his coat and have all the shit you needed. Shit. That was TK's character, the cook.
So the theory is that when you take out everybody's blood and like drip onto the uncontaminated blood, and there'll be some kind of reaction. Because of this, we never actually get a chance to test it though, because somebody has gone into the standard Arctic Research Station blood cabinet and taken out all of the blood, which of course confirms in their minds that at least one of them has been, taken it. Well, we keep saying infected or taken over, but I mean, I think the real thing is just like killed and replaced, I guess. Like that they sort of talk about, it seems like the monster will sort of eat them and then imitate them. Like a piece of it will break off.
Yeah. The monster for people that haven't watched the movie, and I'm assuming a lot of people in the comments have seen the film, the monster is supposed to be tens of thousands of years old and has survived this long. So another part of the story is that it just tries to survive, and it's learned how to survive by going inside. I think it gets your memories too.
Yeah.
Right? Because it can talk to people, it knows who they are. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, to me, another interesting plot point in this whole, it can be just anybody, because you can't fool it. It knows how to survive. So I don't know. That's why I literally jumped out of my seat. The scene you're talking about right now, I jumped, and I've seen the film before, and I still jumped out of my seat.
Well, I mean, going back to when Wilford Brimley does the autopsy on the body. Now, there's something crazy about that, which is that, he's being Wilford Brimley, so he's cranky. He can't help it. He's got a pencil in his hand with a big rubber eraser on the end of it. He touches the remains of this thing that he had cut open, right? And it's gooey. And then he takes the pen and he touches it with the rubber eraser on the end of the pencil. And then later, when he's explaining to the guys what this thing is, he touches his chin with the rubber eraser. I'm like, WTF, man, you just said that every little bit of this thing is alive. It can affect you. What the fuck's wrong with you, man? So that kills me every time. I mean, I wish John Carpenter had noticed that in real time. That's one of the few flaws in the film.
Oh yeah, I can see that. There's a scene where, all right, actually, this is the chronology. The summary I was looking at isn't helping here, so the chronology is a little messed up in my head. But there's the scene that I think Jason's talking about that made a jump, where they finally do figure out a way to do a blood-based test anyway. That since as Touré says, every part of it is alive, and so they say, okay, well, that means that even once we get down to the level of the blood, that's still alive and autonomous. So if you stick a hot needle in there, it'll like try to defend itself, and it works. And I mean, it's just one of the most, like, just as a storytelling beat, I mean, it's definitely one of the best parts of the movie, because they can build up so much suspense as everybody's waiting for each little blood thing to be tested, and then when one of them actually is the alien's blood, like, it becomes a full-fledged monster, and you get the jump scare.
Well, when the blood jumps out the petri dish, it screams. I mean, that actually was one of the most startling moments in the film. I don't know if that caused Jason to jump out of his seat.
I watch movies when I'm doing this stuff and it's always for Ben. Right. I watch these movies in the computer that I use to edit video with.
Mm-hmm.
I have headphones in, so you can hear all the nuances of sound. And the sound in this movie is amazing.
Yeah.
If you watch this movie with headphones on, or if you have one of those really damn good surround. My brother has a really good surround sound, motherfucker. You can hear these little noises throughout the movie that kind of sound like something's trying to scratch to get out. So every time some suspense is building, and this is one of the few movies where Carpenter didn't do the soundtrack. And I actually like Carpenter's music that he does. The Halloween song it's in my DNA, right? But the cat that does the music tried to make it sparse as well, with those low bass notes that you hear throughout. And it's just, as someone put in the chat, a master class for suspense building. Fuck, man. A master class in suspense building. And again, when you read the reviews that this movie got, totally panned. As much as I like Poltergeist, this is just so much more frightening. But I understand why. I talk about that later, why people did like the other films, E.T. and Poltergeist, that came out during the time.
Yeah, family-friendly horror. Poltergeist was a family-friendly horror.
Yeah, Poltergeist is so family-friendly that it's not.
The time too, right?
No, it's not scary at all.
But it's Reagan's America, and remember the scene where Craig T. Nelson is reading Reagan's biography in the bed. It's in this beautiful suburb. E.T. takes place in a beautiful suburb. The thing takes place in a place that no one's ever going to go to, Antarctica. And it's
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a movie. Yeah, it's a movie set in an unfamiliar place that's all about paranoia. Does not have a happy ending. So there you go.
Places are often the stuff of exceptionally scary stuff, right? I mean, The Exorcist, which for me is one of the all-time scariest movies in my collection anyway. But I think it is one of the best movies of any genre, and it is one of the scariest movies in my view.
I wonder how much, like, you having been, well, if not exactly raised Catholic, at least sent to Catholic school, I think
my Jewish friends don't find The Exorcist scary at all. So
that's like, I never thought it was particularly scary, but everybody I talk to who comes from that background kind of finds it scary. So
it's crazy goyim stuff, as one of my Jewish friends said about my attachment to The Exorcist, and I can appreciate that. But the fact that the horror takes place in a bedroom in a fairly nondescript house, well, I mean, eventually we're all going to go to bed,
Right.
And most of us, certainly when we're 10 or however old Reagan was, we're going to go to bed alone, and the lights will be off. And some of the sounds in The Exorcist that are scary sounds actually just kind of sound like amplified versions of the noises that houses make anyway, right? When they settle or whatever, or creaking doors or what have you. So familiarity with a place can really lend itself to heightened horror.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking that, like, you know, interesting contrast is Rosemary's Baby, which is like nominally dealing with the same kind of source material, but it's a movie made by a secular Jewish director based on a novel written by a secular Jewish novelist, and so like Rosemary's Baby doesn't give a shit about the devil. I mean, like all of the horror in Rosemary's Baby is about like gaslighting. You know, the idea that your sense of reality is being fucked with, like that's scary to them.
Roman and Minnie are scary too, and believable because they're such a weird couple. And if you live in New York, that couple's there, right? I mean, whether or not they're devil worshippers, you know, that remains to be seen. But Roman and Minnie were brilliant, great characters, and actors were brilliant in it.
Yeah. So one thing that I also wondered is if this movie, I mean, kind of sliding back into the plot summary, felt a little bit different watching it this time. I mean, I'd actually be curious about how long it had been for both of you guys since the last time you saw it. You know, seeing it after a year of you know, everybody's lives being consumed by paranoia about catching catching a deadly disease. You know, that there was this scene where they talk about how nobody should eat food prepared by anybody else, and you should only eat out of cans. You know, I mean, I started thinking about really early in the pandemic when people thought that surfaces mattered a lot more than they seem to now, and people were doing shit like bleaching their groceries, you know, because they were so concerned about that.
Just the exterior, right? Just the rind.
I hope so.
Not the meat of the orange. You don't do that.
That's kind of what I gathered from it. You know, I watched it, read a few things about it, then actually watched some commentary. Yeah, I told you.
Just a few. That sounds like a dozen. Maybe 2 dozen.
The Corona comparison I thought was very right on, because it is what's happening right now. And it is interesting to see the scene where he kills the dad from License to Drive.
Mazar.
Yeah, that's why I gotta do this research, because you fucking know that guy's name.
Mazar. Clark.
Why would you know that guy's name? He's either played a snitch or a dad for the last 40 years, but you know his name.
Well, because he was everywhere, and I didn't make
his name
to Drive at first.
They make documentaries about the fact that you're not supposed to know these people's names.
Well, wasn't he in like How I Got into College or Better Off Dead?
He's in a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And he played a dad, a dean, or a snitch.
Sure.
They're supposed to know his name.
Clark kind of got what was coming to him, though. He shouldn't have been fucking around like that, right? If a dude has a gun and has already indicated that he's prepared to pop you, let it ride, right? Just let this play out.
Great scene, the Keith David line. Oh, now looks like you're a murderer now.
Completely ignores it.
Mary's dad. Fucking.
I can tell you, I saw The Thing probably a couple years after it came out. I was 12 when it was released, and I saw it on cable, I believe in the basement of my dad's first cousin's house in East Orange, New Jersey, probably 1983 or 1984. And we saw Alien, under the same circumstances as well. And The Thing and Alien were among my favorite films. The Thing in particular, because they were the first horror films I had seen with black characters, where black characters made it either to the end, too close to the end. In the case of Alien, Yaphet Kotto almost made it, or The Thing, where T.K. Carter and Keith David make it to almost the end, and then Keith David kind of makes it to the very end, though he's probably the thing at that point. And it was, for me, oddly enough, as a 13-year-old kid or whatever, it was really quite affirming. And because by contrast, also in East Orange, New Jersey, when Wrath of Khan had come out with Paul Winfield playing a Star Trek captain, I turned to my father. I was a Star Trek fan going back to forever. I really liked spaceships on strings, so I liked Godzilla too. But anyway, so I turned to my dad. We saw it in the theater, and I said, "Wow, Black Captain! If he gets killed in this film, we're leaving." And of course, and I anticipated that he would die saving Kirk, because that had to be how they would go, and that's exactly what happened. He dies. Paul Winfield kills himself to save Kirk, even as Paul Winfield suffers from the same ailment as Chekhov, who manages to survive. But since we saw Wrath of Khan not long before,
hold on. Does this mean you actually did walk out of Wrath of Khan?
We did not. My dad turned to me and said, "So you want to go?" I don't think I thought about the logistics of it, because I don't think he was driving. I think we'd gone with my cousin. So I was like, well, I guess we got to ride it out. But I sat there pissed. It's also funny that Spock managed to survive that one too, when all was said and done, considering what happened to him. So the fact that both Alien and The Thing broke the mold, sort of, at least broke away from the cliche of having a black or brown character there as sort of window dressing, who's the first to get bumped off. And in these films, they were, to a degree, significant characters. They're both ensemble casts. So to make it to the near end or the very end was pretty great and significant in the realm of horror films in that era.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that was also his first feature film.
I love all things starring Keith David because of The Thing. Even those Navy ads, which were horrifying because, well, we'll skip why. I think your audience knows why the Navy ads were horrifying. But, why I didn't contemplate joining the Navy because Keith David said I should. Well, Keith David's getting paid. I mean, the only thing that Keith David has done that I don't like is that horrible ATL.
The movie?
Yeah, the movie. He was in ATL. He played the dad of the bougie light-skinned girl. That's Nunu.
He's nice.
Hey, Jason,
what's the character?
Huh? Yeah, is the echo still there? Or is it gone?
Who's echo?
I was echoing.
Jason was echoing for a second, but I think it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, her name was Nunu.
Yeah, the character's name was Nunu.
And you keep her name out of your mouth.
I'm not criticizing her. She took an acting job, so no shade her way. All I'm saying is the only film that Keith David did that I don't like is that horrible ATL. That's it. Everything else.
I love him as Mary's dad and Something About Mary. Is it the Beans or is it the Franks?
Yeah.
And that fight scene that he has with Roddy Piper.
Oh my God, that's like the greatest fight scene of all time.
It's probably the most. Why
have we not even brought that shit up?
Yeah. The slow pace of it, the fact that they're both struggling in short order made it.
Yeah, it just goes on forever.
Just doesn't stop.
It's unrelenting.
I love that scene. Roddy, you know what, Roddy Piper, you will be missed.
Definitely.
You will be missed. I got a chance to meet him, and he is everything you think and want him to be.
Now, did he say something to the effect that the health issues that he was suffering were owed to wrestling? The duration of his career as a wrestler, and it would have contributed to his shorter life expectancy than one would have.
I think he throws when those guys say wrestling, I think they mean the lifestyle that comes with it.
Okay. So it's not the damage in the ring.
You know what I mean? Like, rock and roll got him. We know what that means.
Yeah. Okay.
Rock and roll got him doesn't mean that they like amp electrocuted him.
No, that's like the least of his worries.
But then didn't something like that happen to Curtis Mayfield? Did speaker stack fall on him or something like that?
Is that why he's paralyzed?
Yeah, I thought it was something like that.
I'm not sure about that, and I've heard some weird stories about that. I don't know. You could be telling the truth. Chat, if y'all know about Curtis Mayfield, he having a bunch of speakers fall on him, I would be shocked if that's what happened, because I'm like, why the fuck was you that close to the speakers? You the front man.
Yeah. So they find finally, we said Wilford Brimley has been off in the shack and in prison there for much of the movie.
And I'm gonna interrupt you, Ben. Best scene in the movie: Kurt Russell opening the little peephole to talk to Wilford Brimley, and the fucking noose hanging right by. Hey man, you want to let me? This is very common. Hey bro.
Yeah, I'm all better now. Not gonna harm anyone.
The noose is just hanging there.
Yeah, they no explanation whatsoever of the noose.
Yeah. It was like a real hangman's noose, right? Not like a belt ready to go. It was a real dedicated hangman's noose.
And the way Brimley is just like, hey,
I'm
man.
good now. I'm all better now.
Awesome. Yeah. They go in there and the noose is still hanging, swinging around, but Wilford Brimley is gone. And then they go into the basement. There's the sort of area under there, and Wilford Brimley has been building a flying saucer
out of helicopter parts.
Out of helicopter parts.
I didn't know it was that easy. I mean, somebody should tell Jeff Bezos that he just got it all wrong. He just needs to go revisit some helicopter parts, and he get a flying saucer that can take him through the galaxy rather than on a giant steam-powered phallus that goes right up and comes right back down.
Well, I mean, he's an alien. I mean, just because he knows how to MacGyver, Earth parts into flying saucer, it doesn't mean that anybody could.
It's that 10,000-year wisdom.
There it is.
That's right. He's been down in the ice for 100,000 years, trying to think about how it would work. Just like whatever parts that he thinks might be available on Earth.
Blood, blow torches, helicopter parts. What else? Dynamite. This is kind of a badass G.I. Joe-esque base they have going on.
Well, I think they had 2 helicopters, right? And I know they had 2 helicopter pilots because Kurt Russell's character obviously was McReady, was a helicopter pilot, and then David Clennon, who played Palmer, who's the guy who's strapped down on a bench, who explodes into the thing after the blood test. He's a helicopter pilot.
They had planes. Didn't they have a plane too?
I don't remember a plane, but I believe you.
So Constans in the chat says, talking of Alien, Dan O'Bannon has Touré seen Dark Star.
A long time ago. And one of the things that's kind of cool about Dark Star, at least in this conversation, is, of course, the Dan O'Bannon connection functions as kind of a tie between the Thing and Alien, which I think is cool. Dan O'Bannon obviously is connected to some pretty cool films.
Did either you or Ben read the short story this is based on?
No, my wife actually did, but I have not.
What did she think of it?
I think she liked it. She was. She generally likes horror movies much less than I do. But when I said I was going to watch this again, to get ready for this, she was like, "Oh yeah, I read that. I'll watch this with you." And then some of it I think was still more than she was expecting, maybe from the John Campbell story. But no, I'd be very curious too. I haven't.
Apparently, that's why when Tobe Hooper was doing was tasked to direct this movie, he did not like the short story. He said that it sucked and it wasn't funny.
Well, I believe that it wasn't funny. they figure out, and I should say here, by the way, we kind of skipped past this, but there's this really strange plot development that I was not at all sure I understood on the rewatch, where they think Knowles abandons McCready because he believes he's been assimilated, which he apparently has good reason to believe because he found like his torn jacket, and that's the thing that the alien would assimilate somebody. They like get rid of their clothes. Found it like stuffed into a furnace, but then McCready has very clearly not been assimilated, and then he but he doesn't say like the obvious thing you'd expect him to say, which is, Knowles was just lying about, like he just took that and tore it up, like my torn jacket was definitely not stuffed up the furnace. He says, well, anybody could have taken my jacket and tore it and stuffed it up the furnace. It's like, wait, really? I'm definitely missing something there.
But Knowles was the first person to find the tattered thing clothes, right? Because he came into one of the, I think when they're all hanging out in the break room or whatever it would have been, he comes in with a pair of torn up underwear, and was complaining about them leaving their nasty drawers around, right? So then he happens to find McCready's thing too. So it was kind of interesting. It just occurred to me that he was the guy that found the torn up clothes.
That no one knew who they belonged to. Remember, that's the whole mystery. Well,
except for the McCready ones, right?
Yeah. All right. So, just want to register that. Don't know what's going on there. But meanwhile, they decide at the end of the movie that I'm actually not totally clear on how they figure this out, but they decide that the thing's plan is going to be to refreeze itself. That's what it's going to try to do.
It's trying to hide. Yeah.
Yeah. So because at this point it thinks that it has no way out, but if it refreezes itself, it could just hang out until the rescue team arrives and then assimilate them. So they go around trying to set fires and blow everything up to stop it from refreezing itself until you finally get this strange scene at the end. And you were talking earlier about how this movie was a flop at the time, and part of the speculated reason was that stuff like Poltergeist and E.T. fit much better with what American movie-going audiences wanted to watch at this point than the Thing did, and this certainly goes to that point because the end of the movie, the last scene is everything's on fire, and McCready is just kind of like sitting, in the ruins of some stuff, and with no hope whatsoever of making it out. And then he sees Childs, who says, I know Touré said earlier that at this point he's probably the Thing because he comes in like he has this story about why he's been missing, for the last little while. So maybe, but assuming that everybody's still human, the ending is just, well, there's really nothing there's nothing left they could do. They don't seem to have a good way to save themselves. It's not even clear whether they want to save themselves because that risks, bringing this thing out to other people. And so they're both just kind of like, I don't know, I guess sitting there freezing to death.
No food.
No shelter. The fire will eventually go out.
That's the sad. That's the scary part. And also keep in mind, and I don't remember if you mentioned this, they're telling everybody back home, stateside, everything's fine. Remember, they don't want anyone to come rescue them. They don't want anyone to come and know there's trouble. It's like, look, there's going to be people coming in the spring. We'll see them then. And this is supposed to be the dead of winter in Antarctica. So that's another part of kind of the dark isolation, which is the constant theme of this movie. Even though there's a group of people, it is the isolation even within your group. Because when we meet these characters, they're not talking to each other. They're all in their own little sad silos, pouring the same liquor, which is like the first time I can remember seeing product placement to that level.
Yeah, JB.
Yeah.
They show it a bunch of times.
Apparently there was some sort of deal they struck with JB to get the liquor in there.
No, they say it's the ending that caused the film to tank. And the fun for me, what's odd about that is the ending is one of the things that adds to the strength of the film, right? As Jason was referring to, the kind of ambiguity, but in the end, it's going to end in the certain deaths of the two surviving or one surviving character from the film. But the uncertainty of it all is and bleakness of it is what makes it a really cool film. But the original, or the Hollywood friendly ending, concluded with a scene with Kurt Russell in a hospital waiting for a blood test. And this maybe is in keeping with Jason's point about HIV/AIDS. And then the blood test comes back negative, right? Which makes me think of an old bit from Robert Townsend from 1987 about how sex was much less safe in the late 80s than it had been previously. And now you're happy if you have syphilis because it's not AIDS. Hey, Ma, no, the test came back. I just got syphilis. Nah, it's great. I don't have AIDS. I'm blind and my hair might fall out, but I won't die. I don't have AIDS. So anyway, so he's waiting for this blood test and he comes back negative and it's a happy ending. And that apparently tested really well with audiences, to my surprise. And to John Carpenter's great credit as an artist, he said, nah, that's a stupid ending. I don't like it. And he stuck to his guns. And I think as a result, maybe the movie tanked and he didn't do a big budget film for many, many years after that.
I mean, what was his next big budget film? Mars? Ghost of Mars?
I don't think that would count.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he did a big budget film after that. He was kind of relegated to the.
Did he do one of those cop films?
The assault on. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Assault at Precinct 13.
Yeah, well, that had a budget, right?
I mean, he had a really bad name in Hollywood for a long time after the thing tanked.
Yeah, he did not deserve that bad name, and I guess it's cable and VHS tapes, VHS rentals, and later DVDs. But anyway, that's what saved.
I mean, this was way later, '96. But there's Escape from LA. I mean, was that like decently big?
I've seen it.
Who was the production company? Was that a Canon film?
I mean, it's Paramount Pictures says so.
Is it Paramount? Oh, okay. Well, that's a budget.
Yeah.
You got real catering.
Some bad CGI by CGI standards.
But I don't know. I respect Carpenter's work, and I'm glad he stuck to his guns with that ending, because I think that's the perfect ending.
It is
for that film. And when you think of, again, when we go back in the Wayback Machine and we think about Poltergeist, even though it does set itself up for two more movies, that is somewhat of an ending where you can exhale for that family, right? They're in a hotel, they've wheeled the TV out, so you're like, E.T., you cry at the end because he gets to go back home. There's nothing reassuring.
No.
It's not a Spielberg movie.
No. And I wonder if those guys ever got along.
Boring. I mean, I think that Jaws was Spielberg's best work, and even then, the bad guy dies, and the two main characters live to tell about it. Right? There's still kind of an optimistic. And only Steven Spielberg could do a film on the Holocaust that has a bright spot, right? Real small bright spot, but a bright spot just the same. And I did not observe that. I've never actually seen Schindler's List for what it's worth, but I'd read a review on Spielberg, a critical review on his films. I think that compared him negatively to Kubrick, maybe. and it went down the checklist of all of his films, and they all have happy endings.
Yeah, I mean, Schindler's List. I mean, obviously, the Holocaust happened, so that's bad. But the actual literal ending of the movie still manages to feel in context like a happy ending. I don't think you could break out of that if you wanted to.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, it's like happy because the war's over and he saved a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rabbit's kind of like that too. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of it. Jojo Rabbit seems to me like a very sanitized version of the Tin Drum. In that film, my parents, because I don't know, they loved me, but just in ways that didn't always indulge my kiddom or kidness. But they took me to see the Tin Drum when it had an American release and subtitled, so I couldn't keep up, and I had to cover my eyes because of all the nudity and sex scenes. But I did go back and watch the Tin Drum in my 20s. It's a really interesting film, and Jojo Rabbit really does seem like it's taking some of the visual elements of the Tin Drum, including the casting of the kid, and sanitizing it for an American audience that has none of the bite of the Tin Drum.
There's a good bite. I think this movie has a good bite.
Trouble in Little China or whatever, and that one probably is what messed up John Carpenter's career between The Thing and that, and for overlapping but different reasons. Because I think Big Trouble was a box office bomb too, but John Carpenter caught a lot of flack, appropriately so, for the depiction of East Asians in that film, right? I mean, it was widely criticized for its racism.
That was pretty hot in a lot of those movies at the time. I mean, there was some
The Golden Child, which would have come out in '86 or something like that.
I just watched it the other night. I want the knife.
And you know what? I saw that film in a theater because I think I was 16, and all you can do when you're 16 is go to movies and pretend to be 17 to go to R-rated movies. And that movie pissed me off partly because I laughed exactly 2 times. And
you didn't laugh in The Golden Child?
I laughed in The Golden Child twice, and they were the laughs that I got from the commercial, which included I want the knife. That was funny. But there were 2 laughs in that film. It was very disappointing for me because I
didn't laugh when he's being interviewed by the guy and he takes the mic from him. He tells he's gonna bust his ass.
But so, how many laughs do you count from The Golden Child, Jason?
I laugh pretty good in The Golden Child because first of all, Eddie Murphy from '81 to '88 could do no wrong.
He was a very talented, edgy.
For me, he could no wrong for me.
Horrible gender politics and homophobia,
which he admits to now
in retrospect.
Apologizing for.
Yeah, it makes sense. And that was common at the time, which would be probably the fallback, right? Because there were groups in the 80s that it was okay to talk smack about.
Not everybody is big enough to do that and say I was wrong for saying things. He actually has come out and said that he was wrong, and he will admit that he can't do a lot of what he's known for and won't do those jokes.
Well, when you go back and watch like those John Hughes films, so speaking of groups in the 80s, it was okay to be awful to. East Asians were high on the list, right? Gay people and East Asians.
John Hughes just was like, black people don't exist. John Hughes treated black people like my kid treats, like, if I can't see you, you're not real. That's how John Hughes treated black people.
And I think that's a reflection on Chicagoland, or at least the sliver of Chicagoland that John Hughes' stories centered on, right? Because it wasn't an unrealistic, in some ways, depiction. At least the absence of black people, I should say.
He had to at least know a couple of the Bears. I mean, shit. I'd had a friend in the suburbs out there.
The Chicago suburbs, though, specifically. And of course, there are black people in Chicago suburbs. But the fact that they aren't present. They aren't a presence in his films. Probably, well, actually, definitely spoke volumes about the sensibilities of many people, many white people who lived in suburbs in Chicago at that time.
Yeah, I will say I'm trying to remember like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because so much of that movie is actually in Chicago, not the suburbs.
Yeah.
And there, I mean, but there are black characters they interact.
One black guy.
Well, there's the garage,
yeah,
right? The black guy, and then the Hispanic maybe guy, and then of course the black and brown people who have lines. Who would be those two, are the ones who ruin the kids' fun day, or at least Cameron's fun day, because they take Cameron's dad's Ferrari out for a drive, thus adding to the mileage on the vehicle. So black and brown people are a force that, a force of nature that can ruin your day, basically, in the John Hughes films. And I'm trying
to think of any John Hughes films where black people had lines other than Ferris Bueller. I think that's
Weird Science, black people.
Weird Science.
They in Weird Science, which I haven't seen in a long time, so it could be.
I just watched Weird Science the other day.
Didn't they go to a blues club?
Shit!
And hang out with a blues man.
Nuts, man. I called a girl every damn night on the telephone. What that boy talking about on the telephone?
So he does his best impression of Eddie Murphy's impression of a brother from the streets.
In the blues club that they go to, because that's how you know it's dangerous too.
Yeah,
there's still movies that do that shit. Like, it's dangerous when you're in a black neighborhood. Like do 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 when just do a bass line. Have you seen that movie 13 about the two girls that are turning 13 and they just become really difficult teenagers? But the movie takes this hard turn when they see these two black guys walk down the street, and the black guys walk down the street in slow motion and shit. And you hear the bass line, do 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 do. Oh, there's black cops in Home Alone. Do they have lines?
Black cops at Home Alone.
Anyone that remembers this shit off the top of their head that isn't Googling it is kind of amazing. I just want you to know that. I think you are an amazing person, and you're a credit to the internet. If you are going off the top of your head and you're like, aha, you are better than Touré knowing that one white guy who had the same beard from 1982 to 1994.
So did we get any more black people?
That man is kin to Ben Burgess. That man is kin to Ben Burgess.
Well, I watched 16 Candles not too long ago during the lockdown, because I was running out of stuff to watch and feeling kind of nostalgic. And the Japanese character in 16 Candles was horrifying, and it did transport me back to my high school days, because I was in high school at the time, and it was okay to say horrible stuff about East Asians in that era.
Do you know that guy went on to do another movie that scared the bejesus out of me as a child, Vamp, with Grace Jones?
Oh, I could see that, because Grace Jones is kind of scary.
He wanted that role because him being Asian wasn't going to be played up. It was just a part. Yeah,
that was in The Darkness, right? I mean, that came up in the Darkness, the documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking very different from any of those kinds of movies that you mentioned, but even like Donnie Darko, which was 2001. There's like crazy. I mean, not that I think the movie endorses it because it depicts it or anything, but there's like crazy anti-Asian racism in that movie that's like not made an issue of, really. Like it's just kind of like it's like, oh yeah, this is like what kids do, whatever,
Yeah.
Sarita Chin, was that the girl's name?
Yeah.
She's in the WandaVision.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh,
that was her.
I watched WandaVision. I did not make the connection at all.
There's Asian-ish woman in WandaVision, and that's her.
Cool.
I had to look that up because I wasn't sure. Holy shit, that woman looks familiar for some reason.
Well, This is one of the reasons I think the Harold and Kumar movies, at least the first and the second, and I really love the second one, in part because I love the Bush character. That guy really the spirit of W. Mitsubishi Wa. You know, that's what I could see Bush saying that. W
like
saying
hand jobs? Oh, you like giving hand jobs? Okay.
That was the best part, and there are a lot of great parts in that film. But I really think the Harold and Kumar movies are brilliant. The first two, especially the second.
They made a third?
Yes, in 3D. It was a Christmas Harold and Kumar, and in principle, it seemed like good fun. But no, it wasn't.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I saw the third one in the theater. It barely made an impression. I remember like three things about that movie. I mean, I saw the first two many times because, it's a period of my life when I was, watching Harold and Kumar movies many times. People can put that together on their own. It
was because of White Castle.
Exactly. Went to made trip to White Castle a lot, etc.
It was supposed to be Harold and Kumar go to Krispy Kreme. But Krispy Kreme, I'm not playing.
No,
What?
Was it a licensing thing or?
Krispy Kreme did not want the association, so yes.
Which is funny because that's actually something I remember saying many times back then that like as much as I enjoyed Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay, that I thought they went in the wrong direction with the series, that they should have just kept the low stakes for the first movie. It should have all been, Harold and Kumar go to Taco Bell, Harold and Kumar go to Pizza Hut.
But then how would you squeeze Rob Corddry's brilliant performance into that, though? Into Harold and Kumar go to Taco Bell?
You could.
Where the sour cream is dispensed in a caulking gun, which is also pretty great if you like sour cream.
Speaking of Taco Bell and the 90s movies, that's why Taco Bell looks the way it does today, is because of a Demolition Man promotion.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I had one of those 64-ounce Demolition Man Taco Bell cups.
No? Phoenix was going to say hi to you, but he ran away.
The birthday boy.
Yeah. He was going to say hi, but he ran away.
Oh. Hey, did you guys make the connection that The Thing was released on the 40th anniversary of Roosevelt's issuing Executive Order 8802?
Did you make that up?
No.
You know this off the top of your head?
Well, yeah, I mean, Executive Order 8802 is a big deal. June 25th, 1941, right? So, Executive Order 8802 establishes the FEPC, which will be the sort of in an indirect way, the precursor to the EEOC, basically. So, in a very indirect way. So, yeah, I know the date of that one. That's a good one. As an Afro-Americanist or just a black dude, that one's an important one. It's also the anniversary of Michael Jackson's death, too, June 25th.
Yeah.
The things that are in your head.
Which is funny because I actually just read.
I was a Prince fan, so.
And I'm scared where this is going because Ben Burgess is going, aha.
No, well, here's what I was going to bring up though, because I just read somebody else talking about the things that are in his head, and the Black history stuff in particular, because I just read an article called editorial, I guess, on Non-Site called "The Whole Country is the Reichstag" by Adolf Reed. Where he has there's a passage in there that made my ears perk up because I'm writing a book about Christopher Hitchens, and in this passage he says, once in an argument in a Washington D.C. bar with Christopher Hitchens during the Afghan War, I asserted that no place in the world had ever been made better by the presence of the 82nd Airborne, not even Fayetteville, North Carolina, its home base. That stopped Hitchens in his track momentarily and prompted a chuckle. Then my son reminded me that the one exception to that dictum had been Oxford, Mississippi in 1962.
There you go.
So just the same way that here, it just pops out.
The stuff that's in his head.
Well, I have a special attachment to June 25th that I won't announce. So
Apparently.
It sticks out for lots and lots of reasons, not just the EEOC. I'll never forget where I was when I learned when Prince died, though, since I was a Prince fan. But I'll spare you that story because it's not relevant to anything.
I was on tour in northern Louisiana at a McDonald's.
All right, I was at a restaurant in Memphis, at Blue City Cafe, enjoying barbecue and good gumbo. Where Memphis is one of the few places you can get both good barbecue and good gumbo.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Memphis has some damn good food.
It does.
One of the best food cities.
Memphis,
Memphis,
go there
Kansas
probably.
City is a great food city.
Mhm.
Where else is a good food city? Anywhere in southern Louisiana is a good food city. I love southern Louisiana in general.
Wow.
One of my favorite places to eat.
Well, of course, you couldn't enjoy any of this food if you were worried about assimilation by aliens. So you were eating food cans, which is my seamless transition back to
Right?
the thing.
Somebody had to do it.
I'm just, we know also I'm happy about, and thank you again, Burgess, for letting me come on, is I really enjoy the movie The Thing.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's a great film.
It is a very good movie. I mean, it is just like 2 hours of just nicely done atmospheric paranoia.
Yeah.
From the opening shot, too. From the opening shot. I just fucking, I love this movie. And it makes me want to go watch some more John Carpenter. Unfortunately, the kid is just there's no Carpenter movies I can think of that I can watch with the kid. I do watch movies I probably shouldn't be watching with him. As Ben knows, I grew up with a father that didn't give a goddamn, and I was watching whatever the fuck he was watching. I try to do this. I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious with this one, but I can't think. If anyone can think of a 3-year-old friendly,
yeah, which is funny because I mean, Touré, I should say that like when we were first doing these movie streams, it was like a recurrent thing that whatever movie we were either talking about or just came up in conversation, lots of which were just hilariously inappropriate to show to a child. Like Jason would always pipe up at some point in the conversation, "Oh yeah, no, I saw that with my dad when I was 9." So, guess not that.
I'm trying to break the cycle because I did it to my older kids, and now with this new one, I'm trying to like break the cycle and be like, no, we can't watch weird science.
So, but are the older kids numb to horror films since they were exposed?
No, the oldest boy, he really would get terrified at things like Tales from the Crypt. So he hates horror movies.
Okay.
The 14-year-old doesn't care, and my daughter and I, that's like our thing. If we're together, we watch scary movies that are young adult friendly.
Yeah, I could not do Oz. So Oz is scary.
Was that because your parents were watching it and you were in a room and it was like, fuck it? Or was you sneaking and watching TV? Because I've snuck and watched TV. Whatever reason it is that you're hilarious. Jesus.
Yeah, fair enough. So I got nothing on that. That's still up there. Okay. Jake clarifies that he snuck.
Oh shit!
Which,
But still, that's some frightening shit, bro.
Yeah.
You know, fucking, he's gonna watch The Thing tonight.
Now, what would have happened if you watched Penitentiary 1 and Penitentiary 2 when you were a little kid?
I did watch Penitentiary 1 when I was a little kid.
Oh, I was talking to Jake, who watched it. Because I think Penitentiary 1 and 2 are pretty scary. I think Penitentiary 2, maybe with Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters, right? He's the bad guy in both. I saw that when I was probably about 13. And
That's
from that
scary.
point on, I said, I am not committing any crimes. That's it. Straight and narrow for me. I'm not messing with jail. Prison.
That scares you straight more than some convicts yelling at you like remember them scare straight things where they would just yell at you before no. Watch.
You remember the Fat Albert Scared Straight? Came out in like 84, 85. People didn't believe me. I saw it. I came home from school. Fat Albert had made a comeback. Cosby Show was on. And there was a Fat Albert Scared Straight. And I was telling people about this for years. You're lying. You're lying. Thank God for YouTube. Because all those people in college who told me I was lying, that didn't happen, I sent links to the YouTube clip of Fat Albert Scared Straight. And it's some scary shit. Fat Albert and the guys are objects of lust for the inmates in this Fat Albert Scared Straight. I was not expecting this to air.
He's gonna sing a song for you.
One of the guys says that something like he wants the fat one because the fat one will keep him warm in the winter and give him shade in the summer. Go on YouTube.
Is this when Bill Cosby was doing the pound cake speech?
No. It is when Bill Cosby was doing the Cosby Show, though. So it was crazy.
Jesus Christ.
I think Bill Cosby was motivated by the underclass ideology of that day, though, right? I mean, so that's in step with your pound cake joke, Jason. It's on YouTube. I just watched it.
I don't want to watch
again
Fat Albert and the Get Along Gang. All of what do they get framed for a crime, or is it one of those things where they actually fucked up because they
messed up? It may have been that they were joyriding. I don't remember what the pretext was. They'd done something wrong and got busted, and they were good kids, so they went through a Scared Straight program.
Yeah. All right. This is good. I'm learning like about classic TV. I need to watch all the time here. There's a Jason informed me a few weeks ago after we did the segment on critical race theory that there was about the adaptation of the Space Traders and the some like Twilight Zone style show.
Twilight Zone with George Clinton.
Yes, which I definitely was not.
The Hudlin brothers directed it. It was called Cosmic Slop.
Huh. Was that before or after Homeboys in Outer Space?
Before. This was when Mr. I can tell you this is, oh man. Think back to Mr. Show.
Okay.
And if you remember, HBO was having issues with Mr. Show because it didn't really hit the way they wanted it to. Mm-hmm. So they were going to try to shoehorn this new thing in, and it didn't hit it at all. No one got it.
Oh, wait. I think you sent me a link to this.
Yeah, man. It's one of my favorite episodes. That part of it, the rest of it was but I thought that one with Benson, Robert Guillaume.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's a take on what's the guy that came up with that whole not Afro pessimism. Shit, I said it out loud. It's like Candyman, if you say it 3 times, he appears and tells you sad stories about colored folks. Afrofuturism.
There you go.
Sorry. That should be Candyman.
Yeah.
Frank Wilderson going through the projects.
Go up to the mirror and say Afro pessimism 3 times, and it comes out.
And a pessimist appears.
I'm not touching this, so I will.
I don't even know why y'all even trying.
I'm actually curious about the Candyman remake. We'll probably see that at some point.
Cross your fingers.
Who's Candyman? I forget. Who's the new Candyman? Who is the new Candyman?
It's the man from he was in one of those black movies that was on Netflix. A Day and a Night, A Night and a Day. A Life in a Night. From the same people that did all the Kugler's. It's Kugler's people. It's actually a really well shot film. Beautifully shot. It makes Oakland look gorgeous. He was in that. He's in another one of those black movies.
So wait, and it's out now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's out. It's in the theater, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I did not have time to go see a movie, but I passed by and saw it, on the marquee of theater this weekend. But in any case, I will say also, when Touré was talking about the Dan O'Bannon connection between the alien and Thing, actually did know what he was talking about because of a book that I read a few years ago, and I was trying to remember the title, and I just found it. It's called Shock Value: How a Few Eccentric Outsiders Gave Us Nightmares, Conquered Hollywood, Invented Modern Horror by Jason Myles, which is actually a pretty decent book in most ways. But there's lots of stuff in there about that. Basically it's about the generation of horror filmmakers, including Wes Craven and John Carpenter, certainly. I do want to. I do want to go back and watch more of his movies again, like that Masters of Horror thing Jason mentioned earlier, Cigarette Birds. Cigarette Birds
was pretty good. I don't know if you remember all the Masters of Horror, and they all weren't winners, but his and Takeshi Miike's was great.
Which one was that?
Imprint. That was the one that they banned from Showtime.
What was the subject?
Oh, it's Takeshi Miike. It's the guy that did The Audition and Ichi the Killer and all this crazy shit.
Okay, yeah. So
it's really it has a lot of trigger warning. It has a lot of like abortion.
Wait a second. I think I did see this one. I know I watched a bunch of these. Like, I don't remember exactly when, but it was like in the era when you watch Netflix by ordering disc through the mail.
2010.
2010, something like that. Yeah. So I did watch a bunch of these back then. There was one.
Was that with Ron Perlman?
Homecoming, I remember. I don't remember who directed it, but it was like almost a really good premise, but I think it was like tried a little bit too hard to hit every liberal talking point. It was about like soldiers who died in Iraq coming back from the dead.
That was John Landis did that.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. And I have a new hatred for John Landis after that. I watched that. Did you watch the documentary series Cursed Films?
Yeah.
On Amazon?
So the Twilight Zone segment.
Oh man, watch that. Watch that. It's a half hour worth your time. Especially we love talking about labor and organizing and union. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't realize how bad Landis was when it came to.
That was pretty awful.
Yeah. I lost a lot of respect for that guy because he directed Thriller.
And American Werewolf in London is a great film. It's a very nice mix of horror and of course a little bit of comedy, and it's got the Dr. Pepper kid, who's obviously the Dr. Pepper man at that point. So I mean, he really did make a wonderful werewolf film. And Animal House, unfortunately, established a blueprint for a lot of shitty movies that would follow that weren't as good. But as Animal House, but that's kind of a significant film too. But yeah, I mean, the Twilight Zone thing was crazy. And if I recall correctly, the kids' parents were immigrants. Something like I think they certainly had not been informed or didn't understand what the labor laws were and what the circumstances of the work that their kids would be doing.
That's why they got them, because remember the Actors Guild was like, you can't shoot with kids
at night, and certainly not with the helicopter flying overhead and explosions around them daytime or night. So that was pretty awful what he did.
And also the Brandon Lee thing. Watch Cursed Films, man. I think you're going to really appreciate it. I feel like if you watch that, we're going to get a very good essay that might appear in Jacobin if you watch that.
Wait a second. What am I watching?
Curse films.
Curse
It's
film.
a three-part. I think each one is about a half hour. The Exorcist, Twilight Zone, the movie, and The Crow.
Okay.
Oh, Poltergeist.
Okay.
Poltergeist.
All right.
And kind of a running theme with all of them tends to be like labor issues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I will watch that. But meanwhile, I am very glad that I watched The Thing again for this. We were planning on this for a long time, and I wanted to make sure that we got to it because I knew it was going to be good. Not just watch the movie again, but I knew the discussion was going to be good, and it was. Any final thoughts from either of you guys?
You go first, Touré.
Oh man. Well, thank you, Ben. I didn't thank you at the start. It was great to have this conversation about one of my all-time favorite films. No, that's what I got right now anyway. Oh, I swear I wasn't drinking beer earlier. It was ginger beer.
Okay. Well, this is on this show. You can you can drink beer. That's fine.
Cool.
It's the that's you go by at least TMBS rules of that on that show. Like you could just have a bottle of beer and that was fine. Anything harder, you had to do the talk show thing and put it in a coffee cup.
Touré, you've got everybody in the chat talking about Fat Albert, by the way.
Good. Fat Albert should be a regular topic of conversation. I hope they YouTubed and saw that I wasn't lying. I might have gotten the finer details wrong because memory, it's inventive. But the gist, spot on. I swear.
Ben, thank you once again for having me on. Thank you for having me on with my good friend. Also, I'm glad to be watching a horror film, not a Vietnam film.
Yeah. Although the Vietnam films, at least you've got all the childhood nostalgia, because apparently you watched everything Vietnam when you were like 7.
There is an interesting element about Vietnam and The Thing. I believe, and I might be wrong about this, but David Clennon, the guy who played Palmer, I believe that he was ardently anti-Vietnam War and ultimately maintained and kind of left politics through his life. And David Clennon and Richard Dysart however you say his last name, have the unusual, are both appear in one of my favorite comedy films, Being There, starring Peter Sellers. And it's kind of cool to see two actors in The Thing having also been in a comedy of sorts, that was released in 1979 that would anticipate Reaganism. And Reagan, I should say, would anticipate Reagan specifically. So there's that factoid too.
And this is another reason how you can tell Touré and I grew up with cable is because if you had cable as a child, you had to watch a lot of films that no young inner city kid should be watching. I shouldn't have watched Arthur and Arthur on the Rocks.
I saw Arthur in the movie theater. Yeah. I don't think my mom had done her due diligence on that one. Because I'm pretty sure I saw it with one of my buddies. So
Splash.
Yeah.
You know how many times I've seen the man with one red shoe?
Well, I think the 10 drum is definitely more raw.
You're gonna be winning on that one. But my mom taped for me because she didn't believe she was watching it. Street Trash, and it came on Cinemax, where a man got his penis cut off and they played keep away with it.
Oh,
yep. My mom said, I recorded this because I didn't think it was real, and I want you to watch it. I was 11.
Wow. Wow. Have you seen the original Swept Away? Not the Madonna remake. She didn't understand it. Totally wrong.
Swept Away confused with Breaking Away.
Totally different film. So it's an Italian film. Was it Lena Wertmuller? Something like that. So that doesn't sound Italian. And obviously the name is not Italian. But it's an Italian film about class and love. It's worth checking out. The original, not the Madonna version.
Madonna one.
The Madonna one, she didn't understand the film at all.
But now that you said Madonna, it makes me want to watch.
Yeah, Breaking Away, ironically, is about all of those things and does have Italians in it, but it's definitely the American.
Ben had cable because you have to have. If you've watched Breaking Away more than 3 times, you probably had cable.
Yeah, that would do it. Because why else would you watch it?
And you didn't have any friends, and you had to stay inside.
What would be worse though is if you watched the movie Rad.
I watched Rad the other day.
Did you?
Eat one. You know what? I texted you and told you Thrashing is on.
You did. While I was watching Decline of Western Civilization and Metal Years, as luck would have it.
I watched Thrashing with my son. My son watched Thrashing, and he also was confused at the skateboarding joust scene.
Yeah, but your son is a budding drummer, so I don't know. It should work for him. Anyway.
I want to keep him away from all instruments.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up. So Jason can go back to keeping his son away from the temptations of drumming. But this is a lot of fun. Anything coming up on this revolution you want to plug?
Yeah. We're talking about Canada tomorrow.
Canada, all right.
Canadian imperialism. Take that, because we don't talk about that enough. And yep, I won't be on it.
I was going to
enjoy Pascal and Kuba Rizniski.
Okay.
Taking a big hot dump on Justin Trudeau.
Do you return to This Is Revolution next week?
I return Saturday only because I shouldn't say only because Greg Tate is going to be on, one of the founders of the Black Rock Coalition.
Yeah.
And we're going to have him spill all the tea on Spike Lee.
Nice.
I made that part up. He's probably not going to talk about Spike Lee.
But you will talk about Spike Lee. Or
I'm not going to talk about him. Enough motherfuckers talk about him. Why do I need to talk about him? Fuck him. No, we're going to talk about Rick James, though.
Nice. You're going to ask
him. In that thing we watched, that Tales from the Tour Bus, Greg Tate is in that talking about Rick James.
So does he know Tosin Abasi?
Maybe. I can see him knowing Tosin.
Ask.
I will.
Or Al Joseph.
Oh, not Al Jolson?
No, not Al Jolson. Al Joseph. Black virtuoso guitarist.
We will have there'll be a lot of colored guitar rock and roll conversations. There's definitely some Fishbone conversations.
All right.
I'm excited to return Saturday. Pascal is definitely holding it down. If only you guys could see me running around here in the background still, but I love y'all.
All right. Sounds good. Everybody should watch This Is Revolution. Not relevant to this conversation, but I'll also just say everybody should read Toward Freedom since we've got Touré on. This show is not coming back for real for a couple more Mondays. It's the Monday after Labor Day. We'll probably do some sort of stream next week, though, so nobody misses it too much. And we are going to leave it there. Thanks again, guys. Left is best.